Imagine this. The smell of damp concrete, maybe a hint of mildew, fear. The air is heavy, it's stale, cold, really seeps into your bones.
Yeah, claustrophobic.
Exactly. Below ground, confined in a solitary cell somewhere in Beirut, she sits. 9 days now. Silence. They've thrown everything at her, every interrogation technique, every psychological trick. But she's trained too. Yeah.
Yes, she's a doctor of psychiatry. She knows the game, maybe better than they do.
Her name is Amina al-Mufti, and they finally captured one of the most effective, arguably one of the most dangerous spies the Arab world has ever produced.
What's really striking when you look into her story is the sheer contrast. The absolute gap between where she came from and what she became.
Tell us about that.
Well, Amina was born in 1939 in Jordan. Absolute aristocracy. Her father was a major jeweler, her uncle, a general in the royal court.
Wow. Real privilege.
Deeply privileged, spoke 4 languages. But despite all this wealth, all this status, she had this profound resentment bubbling underneath, a real burning resentment for her own culture.
A cynicism towards Arab society, its traditions.
Exactly, a deep cynicism.
Which, looking back, kind of positioned her perfectly for betrayal, didn't it? But here's where we need to pause, I think. The motive. It seems this wasn't initially ideological, was it? Not about politics or borders in the usual sense.
No, not really. Our understanding is that this was intensely personal, destructively so. The fuse wasn't lit by some grand geopolitical event. It was lit by a breakup.
A teenage breakup.
Pretty much. Her real breaking point came when she was a teenager.
Yeah.
She was deeply in love with a Palestinian named Bassam, but he was seen as financially, well, beneath her family.
Ah, the classic story.
Right. And when he ended things, the letter he sent, it wasn't just a goodbye note. It was basically an indictment. He called her selfish, too liberated, said he was moving on with someone more traditional, more reserved.
Ouch.
Yeah. And that rejection, that specific adolescent rejection, seems to have been the singular bitter fuel. It powered, a decade of calculated, deadly espionage.
So at 19, she channels this betrayal into an escape. 1958. She convinces her family, send me to Vienna to study, which wasn't uncommon for affluent families then.
No, perfectly normal. But for Amina, this was pure liberation. She just dives headfirst into this unsupervised European life. Shares an apartment with a South African student, Julie Patrick, embraces this whole open social scene, what some sources call deviant relationships.
She comes back to Jordan briefly, right, in 61, with a bachelor's in psychiatry.
She does. And of course, the first thing she does is look up Bassam, only to find out he's married to that reserved girl he mentioned.
That'll blow.
Absolutely crushing. So she quickly gets permission to go back to Vienna for a doctorate this time. But really, she had no intention of ever coming back home for good.
And in Vienna, she needs money, purpose. Takes a job in a toy workshop. Seems a bit random.
It does, but that's where she meets Sarah Barad, a Jewish woman. And crucially, through Sarah, she meets her brother, Moshe, handsome captain, military pilot.
Okay, things are starting to connect here.
They are. This relationship with Moshe deepens fast. And here's where it gets interesting from an operational perspective. Over the next 5 years, Moshe uses his connections. You don't know exactly how, but he helps her get a fake PhD in psychiatry.
A fake PhD?
Yeah. And you see, this wasn't just a piece of paper. It was the perfect disguise. It gave her respectability, instant access to sensitive places like hospitals, refugee camps later on. And it equipped her with psychological insights for manipulation, for recruitment.
So she takes this fake diploma back to Jordan in 1966, wants to start a private hospital.
Right. But the Jordanian health authorities in Amman, they get suspicious. The papers don't quite look right. They demand she get renewed accreditation from Vienna.
Panic stations.
Total panic. Fear of exposure. She flees Jordan again. This is 1967, right after the Six-Day War, the Nakba. And the sources describe her feeling this schadenfreude, a grim satisfaction over the Arab defeat. She was ready to cut all ties.
Which brings us to the next big step, the commitment.
Yes. Moshe proposes marriage. But there are conditions, big ones. She has to convert to Judaism, marry in a synagogue following Jewish customs.
And she agrees.
She agrees. Changes her religion, changes her name to Annie Mobard.
But the consequence of this,
Yeah.
converting, marrying an Israeli pilot,
Mm-hmm.
must have been constant fear, right? Living in Vienna, always looking over her shoulder.
Absolutely. Perpetual crippling fear. Her family finding out, Arab intelligence finding out. That fear becomes the driver for her next move.
Which was?
1972. She spots an advertisement. The Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, are looking for Jewish volunteers, offering good salaries. She convinces Moshe, who was apparently reluctant at first, that moving to Israel is their only path to real safety.
So they emigrate. And she gets interviewed by Israeli security agencies upon arrival. Her audition, essentially.
And she nails it, absolutely nails it. Details her elite background, her family connections. But the clincher, she declares this intense, seemingly sincere hatred for Arabs, rejects the Palestinian cause completely.
They buy it.
Instantly, she's deemed trustworthy. A high-value asset right off the bat. And Moshe. He gets quickly promoted to major pilot in the Israeli Air Force.
So they have safety, the promotion, the new life they wanted.
For about a year. It doesn't last. 1973. Moshe is flying a reconnaissance mission over the Syrian front. He's shot down by Syrian artillery, declared missing.
Devastating for her.
Completely, she's shattered, refuses to accept he's dead, and that motive, that initial bitterness from the teenage rejection, it transforms. It becomes this white-hot need for vengeance.
And she tries to find him herself.
She does. 6 weeks later, convinced he's alive, somehow a prisoner, she persuades Israeli authorities to let her travel to Beirut, Damascus, to look for information.
How does she even manage that?
Cleverly. Uses her Israeli passport to fly to Vienna, then switches to her Jordanian passport to get into Beirut. But her search confirms the worst. He's dead. She returns to Vienna.
And someone was waiting.
3 Mossad officers. The offer is immediate and huge. $500,000. A secure apartment in Vienna. Full security guarantees. All in exchange for her cooperation.
They saw her potential.
Instantly. A stateless woman. Fearful. Arab by birth, Jewish by conversion, impeccable connections back in Jordan, and fueled by this perfect, burning hatred. They called her a treasure.
Okay, but let's push back on this motive again. $500,000 in the early 70s.
Yeah.
That's enormous. How much is it really about Moshe's death or the teenage slight at this point? And how much is it just? She's found a very lucrative path, a way to channel this resentment she already had and maybe build a new identity.
That's a really crucial question. The money was undoubtedly a huge factor, gave her stability, a future, but the hatred, whether for Bassam, for Arab society, or now focused on those who killed Moshe, that made her incredibly effective, driven, intensely. A month in Vienna, espionage 101 but advanced, high-level photography, encryption, memory techniques, faces, numbers, basic weapons, avoiding surveillance. And because of that personal drive, that hatred, she absorbed it all incredibly quickly, faster than most recruits probably.
First assignment. Beirut. Gather intel on Palestinian organizations, resistance leaders.
Right, and she doesn't just join an existing network, she has to build one. Using her money, that sophisticated European facade she projects, to find people with weaknesses she can exploit.
Who does she target first?
Starts relatively small. Befriends a clothing store owner, Khadija Zaran, uses her to get closer to others, then a telecom employee. She leverages that connection to get to his manager, Maroon al-Hayek, exploiting his appetite, says the sources put.
Hayek, remember that name. He's key.
Absolutely. Through al-Hayek, the telecom manager, she hits the jackpot. Secret phone numbers, addresses of key Palestinian resistance commanders.
Which goes straight to Mossad.
Immediately, and those names land directly on assassination lists. This is high-impact intelligence from the get-go.
And Mossad pushes for more. What's the next big target?
This shows just how valuable she'd become. Early 1973, they task her with finding the secret lists of Palestinian intelligence agents operating in Europe.
Whoa, that requires serious access.
Unprecedented access. The kind you'd only get inside the offices of Yasser Arafat himself, or his intelligence chief, Ali Hassan Salameh. And here's a critical detail. At this point, Mossad didn't even know what Salameh looked like. They needed a visual ID. Badly.
So Amina needs to get closer. Much closer. How does she do it?
She's smart. She changes tactics. Moves to a working-class area of Beirut near the Palestinian refugee camps. Her cover, that fake medical degree, she'll volunteer as a doctor.
Knowing Arafat visited the camps.
Exactly. She knew he often met with volunteers, visited the clinics. It was her way in.
That works.
Phenomenally well. She infiltrates the ranks, posing as this dedicated volunteer doctor, gains access to prohibited areas. She's memorizing hundreds of names, faces, camp layouts, maps.
She even gets into Arafat's office.
Repeatedly, under the guise of discussing medical supplies, hospital needs. She builds a remarkable degree of trust at the highest levels.
Then comes the 1973 Yom Kippur War. Her activity must have spiked.
Massively. She secures a special security pass signed by Yasser Arafat himself. Think about that. A pass signed by the PLO chairman, giving a Mossad agent free rein.
Incredible. What kind of intel is she sending?
Critical wartime intelligence. Details on weapons, caches, ammunition levels, troop movements, locations of secret training camps. Information that could directly impact the battlefield.
And does she deliver the face they need? Salome.
She does. She flies back to Tel Aviv briefly, sits down with Mossad sketch artists, describes Ali Hassan Salome in detail. Finally, they have his face, they know who he is, and he goes straight to the absolute top of their assassination list, the Red Prince.
But her success makes her overconfident, or maybe just sloppy.
Something starts to go wrong. Mossad notices inconsistencies creeping into her reports, false information. It turns out a Palestinian officer she'd been trying to cultivate, a man named Abu Nasser, was suspicious. He was feeding her bad intel deliberately.
Testing her.
Possibly. Mossad gets worried. They suspect she might be compromised. They order her back to Tel Aviv immediately.
But she refuses.
She refuses. Doubles down, actually. Intensifies her activities. She blackmails Maroon El-Hayek, the telecom manager, forces him deeper. She even recruits Khadija Zahran, the shop owner, into her network. She feels untouchable.
And then she makes the fatal mistake.
It wasn't a bomb or a shootout. It was a question. A seemingly innocent human question. She's meeting with Ali Hassan Salome himself, and she asks about his children.
Why was that so bad?
Because Salome's marriage, the existence of his children, it was a closely guarded secret. Very few people knew. Her asking about them meant she had access to information she absolutely should not have had.
The alarm bells go off.
Instantly. That single personal question triggers a full, immediate investigation into Dr. Ani Mobard.
What does the initial investigation find?
Ironically, it only confirms her cover story about being a fraudulent doctor, which almost strangely renews trust for a moment. They think maybe she's just a con artist, not a spy.
But then something else comes in.
Yes. A secret tip arrives from contacts in Europe, a rumor about a dead Jewish Austrian woman linked to her Israeli pilot brother, Moshe, who had married an Arab doctor who then went to Lebanon.
Connecting the dots.
Exactly. All the pieces click into place. There were 4 female volunteer doctors who vaguely fit this description. All 4 are placed under intense surveillance.
Amina must have sensed it.
She did. The net was closing in. Mossad frantically orders her to flee, get out immediately. But it's too late. Palestinian intelligence arrests her.
Do they find anything incriminating in her apartment?
Nothing. Her Beirut apartment is clean. She destroyed all evidence of her activities there. Tradecraft was good.
But the diary.
The diary, that's the bombshell. Back in her Vienna apartment, authorities uncover a 600-page handwritten diary detailing everything. Her entire espionage career. Names, dates, operations, motivations, everything.
So they have her cold. But she doesn't break easily in interrogation.
Not at all. She's held in solitary underground. Remember that opening scene? They use psychological warfare. They even show her a fabricated newspaper article. Front page picture of Moshe, claiming he's alive, released from Syrian captivity.
How does she react?
She's apparently delighted, overjoyed. But she stays silent for 9 days, using all her psychiatric training to counter their methods, to resist.
And when they confront her with the diary, her own words.
She plays her final card, leverages that psychiatric training brilliantly, claims she's mentally ill, delusional, schizophrenic, the diary, just the writings of a disturbed mind. She argues it's not enough to convict her, not reliable enough to expose her network.
And incredibly, it almost works.
It almost does. Things get complicated. Lebanese authorities actually intervene, citing weak evidence based on her defense. They push for her release. Palestinian intelligence manages to secure just 3 final days of questioning.
3 days to break her. What do they do?
They know physical force won't work. They can't torture a confession out of her that will hold up or reveal useful intel. So they go for the ultimate psychological blow. They don't just try to break her loyalty to Israel. They destroy her entire perceived reality. They convince her, systematically, perhaps with fabricated evidence or testimony, that Moshe hadn't just died fighting for Israel. That Moshe had been a Mossad agent all along. That his entire relationship with her, maybe even his recruitment help with the fake PhD, was part of a long-term Mossad operation specifically designed to recruit her.
Oh my God. So that the foundation of her vengeance, his death, was itself built on a lie designed to manipulate her from the start.
That's what they made her believe. That final devastating betrayal, the idea that the man whose death fueled her entire espionage career was actually her original handler, that's what finally broke her.
She collapses.
Completely. Confesses everything, every detail. Maroon El-Hayek, Khadija Zahran, the entire network she built. Immediately arrested based on her confession.
What happens to Amina then?
She's held secretly under tight security for several years, until 1980. Then she's part of a prisoner exchange in Greece, swapped for 2 Palestinian prisoners held by Israel.
She goes back to Tel Aviv. Mossad pays up.
They do, compensated heavily, a large sum of money, a house by the sea. But her life is empty. Her family in Jordan had completely disowned her years ago. She has no purpose left, no real connection. She lives alone, isolated, sources say profoundly depressed.
So when we step back, what does this whole saga really tell us? What's the takeaway?
For me, it's the sheer, terrifying power of personal bitterness, of psychological damage being weaponized on a geopolitical scale. Her entire decade-long career as a high-level spy, causing deaths, leaking catastrophic intelligence, it was all ultimately enabled, perhaps even engineered by external forces who simply saw an opportunity in the pain of a single teenage rejection letter.
Amplified later by grief and vengeance, sure.
Yeah.
But originating from that initial personal wound.
Exactly. And it's telling, isn't it, that the accounts of how her life actually ended are so conflicting, no one seems to know for sure.
Right. There are 3 main stories floating around. 1,
Yeah.
she changed her name, moved to the United States, just disappeared into anonymity.
2, Mossad helped her again. Plastic surgery in 1985, a new identity, relocated to South Africa, working in import-export. Another disappearance.
And the 3rd, perhaps the saddest.
At the psychological toll, the isolation, the realization that maybe her entire adult life was a performance based on manipulation, it finally overwhelmed her. That she committed suicide in the psychiatric ward of Tel HaShomer Hospital near Tel Aviv.
3 possible endings, all speaking to a life ultimately consumed by its own secrets and betrayals. Which leaves you, the listener, with a question, I think. Was Amina al-Mufti an ideologically driven spy, a master manipulator in her own right? Or was she, fundamentally, just a broken woman, expertly molded by others, seeking a kind of fatal validation through revenge?